Hey, it's Bekah Berger. Welcome to my first episode of Real Talk Rhody. This is my first solo podcast, and I'm really excited about it. I think considering just how high level things are right now in Rhode Island in the entertainment and reality field, we needed to do this. This is a long time coming. Real Talk Rhody is where we're going to be focusing on, let's face it, there's been some very big news, some waves that have been made these last few months. Really, I would say about over a year when it comes to Real Housewives of Rhode Island. So we're going to get into that and sort of what we know, what we hope to know. And my very first guest of Real Talk Rhody is an actual Real Housewife. It's kind of like I will always call, whether they are current or former or those who are put on pause, to me, they're a Real Housewife, just like how a president of the United States is forever a president. So we're going to be talking to Danielle Cabral, a Real Housewife of New Jersey, and she has a local tie. Her husband, Nate, is from Fall River, Massachusetts. So going and leaning in back into New England, and they're coming back to the area. So we'll talk to her about that. We're going to get her take on what the ladies of Real Housewives of Rhode Island can expect in filming their first season, their inaugural season. And we're going to get her opinion as to what her future looks like with Real Housewives of New Jersey. So let's talk a little bit about Real Housewives of Rhode Island. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's been kind of a crazy, I'm going to use probably a lot of cliche words leaning into a lot of the stuff that you may have been thinking as well. So I'm going to take you back a little bit. Last June, and I know I've said this on TikTok and Instagram Reels, I lean into the clip with Andy Cohen, Watch What Happens Live. I'm sorry, guys. It was a big moment for me in my career. It was my second time on Watch What Happens Live. And then Andy said this.
Happens live.
Thank you.
Hi.
By the way, do
Hey,
not
Abby.
with people from Rhode Island.
And I remember in the moment thinking, did something happen when he and Anderson Cooper came here when they did their big talk at PPAC several years back? Or I know he went to Boston University. Like, I was really racking my brain for why he said that. And then wouldn't you know it, 2 or 3 weeks later, there was this casting that I believe Bravo and Cocktails, great, all the Bravo accounts have all the best tea. And they had this casting and it never said Real Housewives. It was from the production company that brings you Real Housewives of Dubai and some other Bravo shows. But, you know, the buzzwords on that flyer, on that artwork for that casting call was Italian, entrepreneur. And in Rhode Island, specifically, Italian families. And I remember thinking, because everyone immediately assumed, oh my God, this is Real Housewives of Rhode Island. And I don't know about you all, my fellow native Rhode Islanders, but as soon as we met the ladies of New Jersey 16 years ago, it felt like we were watching our aunties on TV, because especially that iteration of Jersey, felt very raw, very Cranston, Johnston, North Providence, Rhode Island. And for years, we've always said, well, given not just the Italian stuff, which we'll get into as the episodes go on, but just the sisters and friends, and everyone knows everyone and everyone's connected, it would always make sense. And then you have the backdrop of the beaches in Providence and all of our great restaurants, Federal Hill, like, of course. And just historically, the way reality TV has always sort of had and found its success before in our reality stars, people like Pauly D, people like Richard Hatch. I'm really going down the line here. And I know a lot of you will tag and comment and say, you forgot about this person. There's been a ton. So I think given all of that, you see this casting call, and Rhode Island actually does have a history with Bravo. Hopefully a lot of you don't forget. Back in 2012, 2013, around that time, maybe a little bit before that, we had Game of Crowns, and that was fully immersed in Rhode Island, specifically Cranston and several locations the cast members came from. And it only lasted one season, but it was very Rhode Island. It was about adult women, pageants, and it was sort of an offshoot of Real Housewives. So we get that casting call. We see the casting call about a year ago. And I had a lot of thoughts. I said to myself, oh, for years we've wanted a Real Housewives of Rhode Island. They have Jersey, they have New York, they've got, I could go down the list. You know all the Real Housewives if you're listening to this. There's no way we would ever get a Real Housewives of Rhode Island. So I'm not going to lie to you. For months, even though I was fully invested, and I'll tell you how I was invested in a moment, but I kind of doubted it a little bit. Like I wasn't a hater. I just thought there's no way. So then I started, after a while, I kept calling it breadcrumbs to find the full Italian loaf. And you start getting these breadcrumbs. Okay, they are casting. It is true. It is legit. They called me. They DM me. And by they, casting, not quite production yet, because I don't think it got to that level, but the casting company. And then it was about Italian women who are really successful in business. And then I was hearing things that it was similar to Married to Medicine, where the cast member is either involved in medicine or their spouse is. So that's what I was going off for a while. And that was in the fall and in the winter. Then the tide, if you will, changed a bit. And that's when I started getting DMs. No, Bekah, this is legit. I was getting voice notes from people. This is a Real Housewives of Rhode Island. My neighbor is being asked about it. My neighbor's being scouted. My coworker's being scouted. This girl I went to high school with, classic Rhode Island, they are being scouted for this show. So things started to get real. And then I remember I was tipped off to and I hope he comes on the podcast, but he was, I believe, in the casting stage of this. And that's when I started seeing women I know, women I follow, women who I think are wonderful and big personalities. Everyone starts commenting on his posts. And the posts don't have anything necessarily to do with Real Housewives, but just about his personal life. He has a podcast. And I just thought, oh, okay. And so I'm looking at the women, and that's when everything started becoming a little bit more clearer as to what this was. And so that's when some of those women that I was noticing, I was hearing more about them. And I think I just kept trying to wrap my head around the fact that I would be going to the same TJ Maxx and the same Target and anything on Route 2, basically, as a Real Housewife. And I think I was also thinking, as someone who has not only been covering Bravo for 18 plus years, but as somebody who has been consuming it for a long time, you almost think, oh, do I want, then I was questioning myself. Like, I always felt like I wanted my housewives far away, not 10 minutes away. And so I don't know. I'm not trying to say, oh, I've struggled with it. It has nothing to do with me. I think it's amazing. I think it's going to be great. I do think Rhode Island for the last few years has been absolutely crushing it. I think Taylor Swift moving here, Olivia Culpo, and what I love about Olivia is she's constantly reminding people, hey, this is where I'm from. I'm a middle child. It says it right in her bio, middle child from Cranston. She got married here. So we have movies that are being filmed here. Good Burger 2 was here. Hocus Pocus 2. So there's been a lot of focus. And again, I know I'm forgetting some things. It's like having a favorite child. I'm not trying to favor one thing over the other, but I think that a lot of this just culminates into having the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. Now, also in covering this, because as you know, maybe I also do mornings on 92 Pro FM mornings where I do Bekah's World, and on WPRO a million years ago when I first started, I had a weekend show called This Week in Entertainment. And in covering this, it's been a new challenge for me. Because as much as I would love to post a lot of the tea I'm hearing, the possible cast members, because as of this point, Bravo has yet to roll out the cast. That could change. I mean, it could change. I haven't looked at my phone, but that could easily change. My phone hasn't blown up. The day the Housewives got announced, by the way, the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, I was at Great Wolf Lodge for an appearance for Pro FM. My phone blew up. RIP to my phone. That was a crazy day. But in covering this, I'm trying to be very conscious of how I'm covering this, because the last thing I want to come off looking like, because again, I don't, I have to keep reminding you, like, this is what I do for a job. So this is my be all end all. This is how I feed my children. This is how I pay my mortgage. This isn't a side hustle for me. This is my main. I'm being very careful, because what I don't want to come across as what happened with Monica on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. For whatever reason, receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, all of that left a mark on me. Like, I feel like I'm still recovering from the Bermuda Beach scene. And I really, you know what, truly, as a viewer, I think I enjoyed Monica in the end. It's just the whole reality Von Teese of it all. Like, I'm not going to drive to, I don't know, Alpine, right? I kept using Alpine as an example. And for those who don't know, it's the 02921 in Cranston. And that's where some of the most beautiful houses are, the most fabulous women. We have fabulous women all over the state. But when I think of Real Housewives, and you might have a different take on it, so if you do, please let me know. But when I think of Real Housewives, I think Alpine. And so I kept thinking to myself, I'm not going to be, because that was one example from Monica and Salt Lake. I'm not going to be one of these people that's driving by these houses of people either I know or I'm acquainted with, because that's just awkward. So in covering this, I've been very, very careful. So I don't know if that's ever been a question for anyone who follows me, like, hey, why isn't she posting this? And why isn't she spilling the tea on that? I rely heavily more so on some of the other accounts that have popped up, who I actually really enjoy following, the Real Housewives of Rhode Island Chasers, and some of the other accounts who are like kind of our local Dumois, right? So I'm going to let them handle that side of things. And I'm going to sort of handle more of when Andy Cohen says something or Dolores makes news. We haven't even covered the Dolores Catania of it all. So that's sort of how we got here. At this point, like I said, we kind of, I feel like I've known the cast members or who it is for months. And I'm not trying to do that as a flex or a brag. And again, I'm not trying to come off like single white female here, creepy, but just from what I've heard versus what I've actually even seen on social media, it's not hard to piece together. You don't have to be a sleuth or a podcast host to really kind of see how it all falls in line. And what I found to be fascinating, again, as a day one viewer of Bravo, as somebody who's been covering this, just to see kind of we get a little inside peek, a little inside scoop, just to see how things are put together, how some people who you might not knew or have known as friends classically, who hang out all the time now, or people you think didn't know each other are now constantly together. And you can kind of see how they assembled the cast. But you can also see how there were people who probably were at one point involved, and regardless of what happened, aren't going to be featured on the show, or maybe will be in future episodes or seasons. Now, before we get to Danielle Cabral, I do want to talk about Dolores Catania for a moment. One thing, I mean, I think she's one of the most universally beloved. You can't find a lot of people who don't like Dolores. She's so revered. Am I using that word right? She's so loved. She's so even. And she could be, especially for those of us who are Italian from Cranston, she could be any of our aunties. And I've always loved her husband, Frank Catania. I know he's got his own, they've had their own issues through the years. But when I think of Frank Catania, I think Cranston, I think Johnston, I think North Providence. I think if he visited Dolores here this summer, he would thrive here and he wouldn't want to leave. He and the wife, the second one, I can't think of her name, and I'm sorry, not trying to be rude or shady. I just can't think of, I can see her. I can't think of her name. Brittany? I don't know. Okay. I'm watching a lot of The Valley lately. So, Dolores, this is the other thing I was putting together back in the fall. And, you know, if you need somebody to corroborate me trying to piece these stories together, ask my coworker, Barbie Joe. I mean, I have, I just tried to say, I'm not like Monica, but I do have like a notes app that I was keeping track of. And I did notice that one of the alleged cast members she was in pictures with Dolores, whether I think they were partying maybe in Boston or something. So I was kind of like, well, that's interesting. And you know what? That's a big regret. I wish I sort of alluded to that. But again, don't want to come off as creepy. I'm very conscious of all of this and how I come off. So Dolores, it looks like, I mean, she said on Jeff Lewis, she's going to be a guest. She's not a main. And I think that that's a really interesting move sort of by Bravo. Cause I think it's not a universally known thing that Jersey and Rhode Island are very similar. I mean, Andy went on The View the other day and the ladies, except Joy, could not believe that we have Italians here. So I think that that's going to be surprising for people. In the way they've been promoting it and the way Andy's been promoting it, there's a lot of Italians. It's Italian heavy. So now I think he's also laying the groundwork a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how Dolores is, I hate to use the word used, but how she'll be utilized. Yeah, I was told by several people, yeah, she's renting a home because I know that that was a big rumor. She's buying a house here. She's going to use that trader's money and build in South County, but she's going to rent a home in Narragansett. Just keep an eye out for her at Coast Guard House, any of the hot spots down there. And she's going to be popping in, I guess. And when you start visualizing how they're going to promote this and the scenes they're going to use in the trailer, don't you picture her like a beautiful shoe shot of her walking in on some hardwood somewhere, and then it's like, and Dolores, like however they're going to say it. Stylistically, that's another thing I'm thinking, like, are they going to lean into the anchor stuff a lot? Probably, because we are the Ocean State. And there's so much, like I said, to unpack about this. Like, how were they trying to cast this? Were they trying initially to cast the, Gilded Age, Newport, old money? Or were they trying to go like the nitty gritty Italian, hardworking, big family thing? I'm wondering how they started versus where they ended up. We're going to talk to Danielle Cabral. This is why I needed a podcast, I guess, because we have a lot to unpack. I have a lot of really fun guests planned. I just appreciate all of you who even just gave me the chance and the opportunity to press play. If you have any little breadcrumbs you want to share with me, any tea you want to spill with me, I would love it. Just slide into the DMs at Bekah Berger. Eventually, we will have our own social accounts for Real Talk Rhody. You are here at the beginning, so you're a day one with me. And if you were a day one from my WPRO days and my Hot 106 days and now my current 92 Pro FM days, I appreciate you. I appreciate you regardless if you've known me for 25 years or you just met me today. It's Real Talk Rhody with Bekah Berger, and my chat with Real Housewife of New Jersey, Danielle Cabral, is next. Hey, it's Bekah Berger from 92 Pro FM with Real Talk Rhody, and I couldn't think of a better first guest to have than an actual Real Housewife. This time it's from New Jersey, Danielle Cabral. Welcome into Real Talk Rhody and 92 Pro FM.
Thank you. This is really exciting for me. This is like a little piece of home, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exciting for me as well. I mean, your connection to Southern New England is a big one because you're married to Nate Cabral, which is such a classic Fall River name, by the way.
You say it the right way, which is amazing because over here it's Cabral. They don't know how to say Cabral.
That just sent shivers up and down my spine.
As Italian as possible, please.
Yeah. Cabral. That's how we say it around here. It's Cabral, not Cabral.
Yeah, I know. Please, you don't even know how many times I have to correct people.
Danielle, we're going to get into some housewife stuff in just a little bit. But speaking of housewives, and of course, I want to get your opinion on Real Housewives of Rhode Island. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about how you and Nate are going to have a homecoming on June 23rd with Shop Like a Housewife. And you're going back to the Riv. You're coming back to the House of Cabral in Fall River. Yeah. So tell us about Shop Like a Housewife.
Okay, so we're actually doing it at our best friend's bar, Scotty's Pub. And if you're familiar with the bar, it's like Cheers. Everybody goes there, you know everybody's name. It's just such a great spot. And I do Shop Like a Housewife to promote all these small businesses. But for this event, we're almost sold out of tickets. So it's actually going to be more like a party than a shopping event, which just goes to show how much Nate's like loved in his hometown. And I'm really excited to go back and meet everybody.
It's a homecoming, as you said, a big
Yeah.
reunion. Scotty's Pub. That is so classic of this area, though, because it's the best friend that owns the bar, and I love that that's the location you chose for Shop Like a Housewife.
Yeah, there was no other location I would pick. I mean, I've been going to that bar now for 16 years, and they're our best friends. So it's going to be a really nice night.
And now I'm wondering, and I think you did talk about this on Real Housewives of New Jersey. How does a Jersey girl and a guy from Fall River connect? How did you meet? Nate Cabral.
Las Vegas. We met in Las Vegas Memorial Day weekend, 2009. I was out there working. He was vacationing with his friends. It's true. Who has a house phone? Like of all times for a house phone to ring. Anyway.
Is it a telemarketer?
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely. That's all.
Somebody from Scotty's Pub.
We met at Studio 54 in Las Vegas at 3 a.m. and we fell madly in love. It was like a movie. And then we did long distance. I actually lived in Fall River for 2 years on
Get
Hood
out.
Street.
On what street?
Hood Street. It's called Hood Street. And that was like when all the bars and clubs were hopping in Fall River. It was such a good time. So,
and did you party in Providence at all?
Yeah, we partied in Providence, but that was like a big night out. You know, you had to like drive to Providence, and who's going to drive? Because we all want to drink. But Providence was always like the nicer vibe.
The bigger city, if you will. I mean, it was closer for you in Fall River than it was in Boston, because Boston was such a commitment. But Providence, it was still a night out, just not as much of a commitment.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're talking to Danielle Cabral. Shop Like a Housewife is going down at Scotty's Pub on June 23rd. So when you say, so what's the experience like? I know you say it's like a homecoming and a fun reunion for coming back to Fall River, but what can people expect at this event?
So typically I do these a lot in all different states. And at these events, I am like bouncing around with everyone. And there are a lot of Bravo fans. And we just come up, we talk, they tell me who they like, who they don't like. You know, it's like all Bravo talk that you get to ask somebody that's actually been on the show. And then we also have small businesses in the area that are local that showcase their products and their company. So it's really such a cool night. Everybody, the vibe is so chill, low key, nothing fancy. And we just drink and have a good time.
So your two worlds basically come together, and you mentioned Bravo, you mentioned Housewives. Obviously, we know at this point, Real Housewives of New Jersey is on pause. And is there anything you can tell us about your future on Real Housewives of New Jersey?
So everything is still up in the air. We really don't know what's going on. I always say like I came on at the worst possible time ever, because me and Rachel really did, because we have such great stories to tell. The cast, it was just a crappy time to come on. So I really hope they revamp. What I hope for is that they bring really rich girls from Jersey that are crazy, because I could have so much fun with really rich girls. I could have a ball with them. And yeah, just fun, you know, young, youthful, fun, because that's Jersey.
And would you say you feel like you and Rachel got lost in the shuffle of the last few seasons?
Not necessarily lost in the shuffle, because I think, I don't know, I feel like I contributed a lot to the seasons. It's just the toxicity of when you're on a show for a really long time, you got to make sure that you put your all into that show. And sometimes it doesn't come off authentic. And when you push things, it doesn't work. For me, I'm old school reality TV. Put the camera on and let us just go, you know? And I think Rachel and I could have done that without being so contrived and just trying to make things that aren't there happen, if you're getting my drift.
Yeah. Is there anything that you felt was pushed specifically in those last few seasons?
Yeah, my whole storyline, I think, with Jen and how she was treating me and was came out of left field. That's why a lot of the scenes I'm like, what? What is happening? Because I was like, it blindsided me. It was crazy.
So since we last saw you in the cast, it was at Rails, it was the Off the Rails finale viewing. We never got a reunion. When was that the last time you saw a lot of the cast, or have you kept in touch with the fellow housewives?
We actually were, besides Jen and Teresa, we all were together a week and a half ago. I put together a whole night for us to go see a Broadway play. We went out for dinner. So we all do have great relationships. I talk to Margaret a lot. Melissa's doing her thing. Rachel supposed to go to the shore because our kids love each other. It's a great dynamic now, and I'm glad I got to see both sides for who they really are, because I think I'm the only one on the show that joined that got to see both sides for
Both
what they are.
sides, both sides of the Melissa Teresa thing, or both
Yeah.
sides? Yeah. And where do you
Mhm.
come out on that whole situation at this point?
Oh, I come out with so much knowledge, and I'm just like, my eyes are like, huh, I see you. And I think I'm exactly where I was supposed to be, even from the beginning and the get-go of this thing. I like the girls that I hang around with now. Put it that way.
I get it. I totally get it. We're talking to Danielle Cabral, Real Housewives of New Jersey. Shop Like a Housewife is June 23rd. And just one last thing about Jersey, because I want to get your opinion on Rhode Island for a second. What do
Okay.
you make of the rumors about Dolores spending some time with Real Housewives of Rhode Island this summer and sort of bridging the gap between Jersey and Rhode Island?
So I think that's super cool, because if anybody could do it, it's her. But I think these girls are going to be able to hold their own every which way from Sunday, if you ask my opinion. I don't, but if there's a franchise to ever come on that's new that can take off, I think it's Rhode Island, in my opinion. But I think that's cool.
And what for the housewives, and you're a relatively new, you were in the last couple seasons of Jersey. What can they expect as being new to this franchise and really this world?
Oh, they can't expect anything. Expect the unexpected. Expect to be just when you got it down. Nope. Nope. You can't give advice to anybody that's joining a show. They just have to figure things out for themselves.
Is there anything that you feel like you would have liked to have done differently, or are you looking back, no regrets?
I have no regrets on how I handle things. I wish I would have known people's capabilities before I let them into my life the way that I did. That if anybody was going to go up to do this type of show again and be ready, I don't think you could be any more ready than me. Yeah.
And you say that because of just because you've had experience in reality TV before. And so you kind of went into it. So unlike other housewives probably before you or in your current cast, do you feel like you were a little bit more prepared?
In some aspects, I was prepared for like the logistics of it, like cameras in my face, this, knowing that you're on at all times. But the type of show, I was not prepared for it. I was also unaware of the Housewives world. My mom watched a lot of the franchises. I did not. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But I come from old school reality TV. Like I said, cameras go up and you just go, and if you can't hold a storyline, then you're not coming back next year. But this is an ensemble of a bunch of, as we say in New York, doozy boxes that I was not familiar with at all.
Do you ever miss the cameras, Danielle, at this point?
I'm on camera every day, whether it's my phone or
Yeah.
doing something. And it's my true love. I love to just be on at all times. But Housewives cameras, I'm really happy that I had a little break. to be honest with you. Get my life back on track a little bit.
Of course, of course. I can imagine that having a camera or a crew really in your home and just filming you very consistently for months, that's going to be a little bit daunting, huh?
That was the best part, believe it or not. The crew was the best part. My kids loved them. Valentina would perform for them all the time. They were the best part of the gig, if you ask me. The all cast shootings, when we all would get together, I must have grew about 10 ulcers in my stomach from that. That I don't miss. So I hope if this thing does go up, I find joy in going to film with an all cast again.
Less agita if we make it back on Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Yeah, less agita for sure. Yeah. Like it should be that. You know what I mean? It should be where I'm enjoying this. And I've spoken to other housewives and they're like, no, we don't experience that. And that's Jersey. But that's also why Jersey's number one.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But you're right. There that to that point, like it maybe I know it's bad thing that you get stressed out and you get this like pit in your stomach, but in a way that's like you said that they're the gold standard. New Jersey has and always will be. They still it's so funny in these interviews that Andy's been doing about Rhode Island. They still talk about the table flip, and that was 16 years ago. When you and Nate met at Studio 54 or 52 in Vegas, that was when the Teresa table flip happened, and it's crazy that they're still talking about it now.
Yeah, well, that set off the franchise. That changed the game, I think, for everybody. Even people that join, they want, like, you know, everybody wants that moment. Plus, that was when it was good, man. That's why it was a good scene. That was crazy. That was reality, right? That's when Teresa did things authentically, and she was acting based on raw emotion. And not something she planned going in, knowing exactly what she was going to say and how she was going to say it. And that's where the disconnect has happened from that season to where we are today.
So you almost just wish you could go, like you've been saying, you wish you could kind of go back to the early way of doing things.
Yeah, I think for me, that's what I did. It was very much like, whoa, wow, what are you saying? Hold up, because you see my face, I'm just like confused. And that's what made people like Teresa great. And she was great. But after a while, it becomes like, all right, what am I going to do today to still be Teresa? And you can't work with that. It's like, come on.
From your opinion, Danielle, and we're going to wrap up in just a minute here and talk a little bit more about Shop Like a Housewife. Do you think time heals all when it comes to Melissa and Teresa, or are we there's no hope at all?
Let me tell you something. If you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said no. But Teresa just did an interview where she said she could come back with the whole cast, and I nearly almost fainted on the floor and died.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going on with that. According to Melissa, no. Teresa, I guess she can. So who knows?
So we could see maybe the entire cast come back. You don't think so?
I can't go through. I can't deal. I can't go through it again. I just don't want to. I just know too many things behind the scenes that has happened, fake stuff that has happened, and it's like, well, we're over this now. Please, please, please.
So if they were to say, all right, Danielle, like we're going to go off of pause, but Melissa and Teresa are both coming back, what would you say?
I would have been like, I would say you're crazy and stupid, but all right. Now, if they would say to me, we're going back up and Jen Aiden is involved, I would say, thank you. Have a great day. Want no part of it.
Yeah. So that if Jen was on, you would say no.
Yeah, I think Teresa, once the cameras go up, as much as she did, I got her number now. So it's like, like when you just don't care about something. I don't know.
I feel you.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But like, it's like, that's on you, Bravo, if you want to continue that stale story.
I get it. I understand. And I'm sure that a lot of the viewers feel the same way you do.
Yeah. I just could never physically be in a work environment with the other one and look at her and expect my bosses to be something I'm not. So one thing I can't do, I just can't fake it. I can't fake it.
That's why you have a ton of fans. The fan base is very big for Danielle Cabral. You're very authentic, and you can talk about all of these things and so much more. Shop Like a Housewife is June 23rd, and I know you said there are limited tickets available, but how can people find out more about Shop Like a Housewife?
So you can go to shopmass.eventbrite. The link's on my Instagram. It's on my website, daniellecabral.com. And we're expected to sell out. So we actually might sell out over the weekend. So it's going to be crazy.
Shop Like a Housewife, June 23rd. Danielle and Nate are going to be there. When was the last time
And
you
my
were in
kids.
Fall River? And your
And the kids are going to be there.
Family event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We go a lot. We go a lot to see family.
It is June 23rd. Danielle Cabral, can't thank you enough for coming on Real Talk Rhody today.
Thank you for having me.